Alright, I had a 30 to 40-year-old male that came in for a DOT physical. That's the Department of Transportation physical. It's usually once every 1 to 2 years. What the Fed wants to do is make sure that our drivers, our truck drivers, are safe and won't have seizures, sudden heart attacks, or strokes on the road. Because if they're driving very heavy vehicles, 10,000 pounds, you have a blackout on the road from sugar, diabetes, out of control, stroke, or heart attack, even a kidney stone. You can actually kill a lot of people. So it's mandatory that our truck drivers across America have to have physicals. So I usually find most of my truck drivers don't eat properly. They usually don't exercise because they're so busy driving and in a stagnant position, sitting and waiting. And they also are usually stressed out. And then because of that, alcohol and tobacco and a couple other things. So usually there's a bad cycle of events that happens with this small subset of the population. The challenge is when I have somebody that comes in for a physical is not only to pass them for the physical, but also to empower these guys, mostly guys, to see what's coming in the next decade or two as far as sudden heart attack, stroke, hypertensive heart disease, diabetes. So one of the common things I'll have, especially my younger guys, is when I ask them about, when I see somebody that has high blood pressure, the first thing I ask is, do you exercise? Because there has been great association between lowering salt and lowering blood pressure, and an exercise, cardiovascular exercise, and lowering blood pressure. Believe it or not, there's also an association between relaxation therapy and lowering blood pressure, especially with truck drivers who are faced with traffic delays, people cutting them off, sitting and being hungry for a long amount of time. So back pain because of their obesity. Check out the talk I just gave on piriformis syndrome and sciatica. But these guys will usually answer me when I ask them about what form of exercise they do. They say, oh, I exercise a lot. I do a lot of lifting. That's not really healthy exercise. And just because you can swing a sledgehammer does not mean that your heart is relaxed. I had one guy who just didn't want to be there, didn't agree with the Fed checking him out or making me check him out. And he aggressed. When I asked him about exercise, he said, yeah, I can bench press 3 of you, Doc. And I know he was angry about something, but I kind of just stepped aside and did my usual thing of getting him get through the physical and hopefully getting him back on the road. Maybe when he's ready, he'll come back. And maybe when he's ready, he'll take care of himself instead of waiting for his heart attack to come or him killing somebody because he had problems with a stroke. Anyway, exercise is good when it's done on a regular basis. If you can't exercise because there isn't enough time in a day, then I ask, well, what exactly is your concept of exercise? And for most of my guys that are 30 to 40, it's usually what they harken back to high school, and usually the guys that exercise are the guys that went to the weight room. And weight training or weightlifting is considered a form of exercise, but really the evidence-based medicine as far as longevity, living till 98 years of age without any medicines and hopefully not too many surgeries, usually exercise is associated with some kind of cardiovascular exercise, not necessarily bodybuilding exercise. Weight training can help with preventing osteoporosis. Impact exercise, weight-bearing exercises, they all help with osteoporosis. And that can help some of the population, but sudden heart attack, stroke, life-altering diseases usually get the best response with some form of cardiovascular. When my guys that work 50 to 60 hours a week have 2 kids at home that really need some attention, they need family time, to do 2 hours a day or carve out 2 hours a day is not reasonable. 20 minutes a day maybe, but to compress the time, to compress 2 hours into 20 minutes takes a lot of finagling. It takes a lot of coaching. So to rely on what you did in high school, if you played football, if you're just hanging out at the gym and lifting weights to get big pecs and hopefully attract women, then you probably learned the wrong kind of exercise. If you were training with a football team, a wrestling team, a martial arts team, then you probably have a little bit of coaching. But again, to apply that when we're in our teens to what you're doing in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, when you've developed a little bit of a belly, when your posture's off, when you have a little bit of diabetes, when you have no time, you really have to have a professional exercise physiologist, a physical and medicine and rehabilitation doctor, a sports medicine doctor like myself, or somebody like a yoga teacher like myself, or an instructor, a trainer, even a life coach. If you can get somebody who's been through the ringer and has taken care of a lot of people, if they can get behind you to design or template a specific life change for you, that would be more sustaining than you picking up a magazine and going through and trying to apply on a magazine or on YouTube, trying to apply what you've learned or what somebody's illustrated to your life. You always have to have it templated for you. That's why it has to be scripted properly, and really investing time to see the professional is worth it because it's more sustainable. For these changes to last, they'll have to be designed specifically for a person's body type, a person's cardiovascular fitness, a person's what a person has to spend per month, or at least what they're brought up with as far as exercise. I have a picture of a muscle here. A muscle is essentially made up of fibers, a bunch of fibers all wrapped in a casing, and they start at one bone and they go to another bone. When the muscle contracts, it makes the bones move. It closes the joint. When the muscle relaxes, it opens the joint. That's how everything works, whether it's a finger, an arm, a back. Muscles work that way. Muscle fibers, when you break them down, have these little things called mitochondria. There's little powerhouses that make ATP so the muscle will contract strong. There, at one point, was thought that you can't develop new muscle. It's called hyperplasia versus hypertrophy. You can only get muscle that you have and enlarge it. But after a certain time, you can't add more to that. So I agree in that theory, but I also think that my patients that believe if you develop fatter fibers and more mitochondria, that you'll, in theory, burn off more fat. In theory, you will if you have more mitochondria, but you have to have the mitochondria elicit enough exercise and movement and make that ATP so it burns the fat from the fat stores. There's depot fat behind the arm, in the belly, on the sides, behind the back, the buttock. There's under the chin. There's depot fat, and those of us that have the trait that it's called a thrifty gene, the trait that makes us put away extra savings or extra fat for a rainy day. Some people have something called, as I mentioned, the thrifty gene, and certain people in the Andes, the southwest United States, the Eskimos can survive famine by being able, when food is available, to take the food that they eat, convert the energy in the plant or the animal that they just ate in, and put it away. Instead of burning it up and utilizing it, they put it away and store it for those times when famine hits, in the winter time usually. And those people had that gene to get them through. But unfortunately, you won't find that kind of famine in the United States. You usually find a 7-Eleven or a cheap restaurant, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's. You find a cheap restaurant that can serve you cheap food, high in calories, usually all bad, that's high glycemic index, and low in omega-3 fish oils, low in fiber. You'll have all this stuff that usually will be put straight into the depot fat. And if you happen to have the thrifty gene, it'll be even harder to get the depot fat to release its fat so that the muscle will use it. So back to the reason I was talking about this. Those of you who think that if you make thicker muscle and you have more mitochondria, you'll burn up fat, it doesn't work that way, because usually the exercises you get to build your muscle are not the exercises that you use to burn fat from the depot areas. Plus, it also takes relaxation. If you're constantly under stress, then you have this hormonal cascade that always tells the body, put the calories away. Put the calories away in fat stores and don't build up muscle. When you have lack of sleep, when you are constantly stressed out, when you eat foods that are high glycemic index, and I'll put a link on high glycemic index, causing you to have a high rush of sugar and then dropping you down after all that insulin tries to put away that sugar, it is usually detrimental to your health. It usually will shorten your lifespan. Cardiovascular exercise, relaxation therapy, foods, mostly plant-based whole foods that are low in glycemic index and high in omega-3 and high in fiber, those are the things that will make you live till 90 without any disease, without any surgeries, without much medicine. But again, that's what I usually will, there will be an aha moment in most of my patients as they hit 50 to 60. And it'll be, oh, I get it now. I'll change around my exercise routine, but it's usually too late because they've gone through their heart attack, they've gone through their diabetes insulin pump, and it's very hard at that point in time because most people have age on top of that. And they still have muscle, but they're low in testosterone, they have no energy, their enthusiasm's gone. The possibility of them, because of joint problems, arthritis, the possibility of them taking up a hiking routine, finding a yoga place, going exercise, doing a 5K, the possibility is now gone because of all the other accumulated medical problems from waiting so long. It's unfortunate, but that's why I want to put these videos out, is to, at the age of 30 to 40, get the aha moment to my patients. So if you understand this concept of mitochondria and building muscle, you'll understand that it's not going to help you in the long run. It'll help you get big muscle and lift heavy weight, but that will not, in any evidence-based studies, get you to longevity. Usually, as I mentioned before, longevity is associated with low body weight, a mostly plant-based whole food diet, and then some form of relaxation therapy. And that doesn't mean you have to go to a psychologist or a counselor. It just means you have to, say, be one with nature. You have to work on listening to your breath. You have to spend some time away from the computers, away from bad influences, and just slow down a little bit. Even if you don't have time, believe it or not, if you learn to just concentrate on your breath, just for 5 to 10 minutes a day, it'll actually improve your sleep, it'll lower your blood pressure, it'll turn off the stress response hormones, and it'll get you more set to neutralize the stressors from your 10-hour day. And that means less medicines, that means less anxiety, that means better problem solving. So it all works in the long run. Just have to, again, understand how to make the changes and not just wait until you turn 50 to 60 and have the heart attack, and do it more preemptive strike. Preemptive striking at an early age is most important.